It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Keith Dressler, DDS, MSD, who has over 35 years experience in a private practice, orthodontic practice, and currently serves on the advisory board of the American Teledentistry Association. He is also an avid entrepreneur. In 2000, Dr. Dressler co-founded OrthoBanc, a cloud-based automated accounts receivable platform that is currently serving over 4,000 healthcare providers, managing more than $650 million annually. In 1998, Dr. Dressler co-founded Elite Physician Services, a national healthcare patient finance company. As CEO and chairman, Dr. Dressler grew the business to $200 million in sales before it became the City Health Card in 2003. And today, Dr. Dressler is chairman and CEO of Rhinogram, a leader in cloud-based HIPAA-compliant telecommunication software. My gosh, what is it about Tennessee? You're in Chattanooga, home of John McSpadden, probably one of the greatest entrepreneurs in endodontics. You ever get to see John?
I do. I run into him occasionally. He's retired, but I see him at restaurants around town. And again, a wonderful gentleman, a true great fellow, and as you mentioned, an entrepreneur as well.
And then you're in Tennessee, where that's home of Smiles Direct Club in Nashville. Talk about teledentistry. If you're an orthodontist, if that's not the biggest game changer in orthodontics, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't know. They definitely are challenging a new delivery system, put it that way, there, and it's it's a huge disruptor. I think we could talk about if their delivery system or how they're delivering it is the absolute best for the patient or not is another story. But for sure, they've done a great job of advertising and making the public aware. I think again, from a true delivery model with the patient's best interest at heart, I think they're going to need to tweak it a little bit, if you ask me, as a practitioner. But Rhinogram actually was really derived from issues I was having in my own practice, and that was back in 2013. Patients began to text more than call my practice with my staff that they had their cell numbers. And that was a big problem because they're texting any of them who they had their numbers. Can you change my appointment? Hey, I'm at the family dental office. They want to know about wisdom teeth. They would snap, the patient would snap a picture and text it to one of my staff. The staff's responding, and I'm not even seeing the communications. Secondly, at that time, Facebook came out with business page and messenger, and patients were beginning to message me like crazy. So really, I began to understand there's a huge communication change. Patients want to communicate by text and social media messaging, and yet there was no platform that allowed that to occur or no medium that allowed that to occur. Hence, Rhinogram was born, and it began to solve these problems, as well as my staff were texting me, personal cell phone to personal cell phone, about patient care. If I'm at a continuing ed meeting or if I was on vacation, emergency would come up, I would get texted, and they're sharing, personal health information on their phone, my phone. And again, I, the practitioner, am legally responsible for all that communication, and it was residing everywhere. And again, Rhinogram's platform brought all the communication into one place. It legally protects the provider, and all the information is permanent and non-editable. And you can go back, reference it, use it for compliance, use it in audits, all kinds of great things. So,
where does the name come from? Rhinogram, rhino. I know hair, and rhinos. That nose is hair. It's kind of like Denton. It's where'd you get rhino?
Well, at the end of the day, what we were thinking, since we were bringing all communications into one place, we were thinking omnigram, and with gram obviously being the message that like a telegram. Well, when we looked up the URLs on omnigram, you couldn't find any, so we couldn't use that name. So we went out and did a search with something gram. Rhinogram came up to be the one that we could buy all the URLs, and then we turned around and took it to our logo design artist, and he began to do research and found out that in nature, the rhinoceros and the bird just so happens are symbiotic. The bird sort of warns the rhinoceros of danger, it flies ahead of it, and it cleans the back of the rhinoceros as well. So if you think about our big platform where everything resides as the rhinoceros, and the bird, which is the messages and messengers, which of course Twitter came up with the bird and the messaging, the logo worked incredibly well for what we're doing.
So this is what year did you get out of ortho school?
1985.
85. I was 87. Man, we didn't have any of this stuff when we got out of school. There was no, I didn't have a laptop, a cell phone. I thought the hot new thing was the automatic garage door opener. And now, did you ever see this going to happen when you got out of school?
No, absolutely not. Obviously, as all practitioners are, you're trying to learn the business of dentistry or the business of orthodontics. And you're not focused, and you're focused on care, and you're focused on learning business and hiring people and all of the things you weren't taught. And the last thing on your mind was really advancements in technology here, other than your dental technology that you were wanting to look at, but in terms of communication and in the internet and all of this, I would have, I couldn't have imagined it.
And succinctly, I mean, it has so many features, but I mean, you got patient communication record, smart message routing, analytics dashboard, two-way patient messaging, EHR, PMS integration, HIPAA risk management, photo document sharing, Facebook Messenger integration, custom message templates. But what's the 80-20 rule? Why are 80% of the dentists buying this? What feature is the deal they have to have?
Well, I would absolutely say it's we provide a HIPAA-compliant textable number, and that textable number usually is going to correspond to the voice number that you currently already have. And the reason that is a critical piece of the equation is the largest percent of consumers today are 23 to 39 years old. It makes up 80 million people. In that age range, they grew up texting. They did not grow up voice calling. They want to do everything through text and what they can do online. And what Rhinogram platform gives the practice is the ability to meet the patients where they want to communicate. They want to communicate with text. And as you mentioned, we have Facebook Messenger integration. So if they want to Facebook message you, then you sort of must have this. It is the new form of communication. It is the modernization, if you will, of the telephone, but it's not the telephone. So to me, I liken it to imagine a practice when there was teletype, and now the new telephone came into being, and you had to advertise your number, et cetera, et cetera. This is the same thing. The communication has the most modern form of communication is now text and social media messaging. That's the number one way people communicate. 84% of the United States population prefers text and social media messaging to voice. So to just force patients to have voice, you're behind the times in terms of how they want to communicate with you and how you can communicate with them. So I would say that's first and foremost, number one. Secondly, this group of millennials, Gen Zers, that, if you will, late Gen Zers or there, who have grown up only, not voice calling, but doing everything online. Well, your practice better be able to handle and acquire patients this way as well. So I would tell you that virtual consults, virtual questioning, virtual follow-up to existing patients, all are done with this platform. So we also have a website widget that can be embedded in your website. So if patients are on your website and they want to communicate with you, or if it's a new patient on your website wanting to communicate with you, they can simply from your website click on that and begin, if you will, texting with your practice. So you're giving patients exactly what they want. And those 80 million folks, if you're not the one giving it to them, they're going to go to someone who is. The vast majority of our clients will tell you, and by the way, we have probably close to 500 locations using Rhinogram today. And it's not just in dentistry. We have pediatric physicians, we have OB-GYNs, we've got whatever. And every one of them would tell you, please don't tell anybody else in my area that you've got this, because it's such a competitive advantage for them. They're gaining so many people online that you didn't even know existed, if you will, and or who want the convenience of communicating in the way that modern communication occurs today. So if you're the one out there communicating this way, then you're the one going to get these new wave of patients that are coming in. So that's the number one reason they would want us.
Now you we beat that one up really good. I want to switch another one. When I was getting my MBA, the book that blew my mind the most was called The Profit Zone, and it took all 16 major sectors of the economy and said, let's not do sales like say cars, like Chrysler, GM, Honda. They have all the sales, but they just added up the net profit dollars, and actually the people financing the cars made the most profit dollars. Next for the ones insuring the cars. And indeed, the people making parts for the cars made more money than the actual guys, the companies that made the car. So insurance, banking, and financing is where all the money's made. The city of Manhattan pays more taxes than all of the rest of the boroughs in the state of New York. So my question is, you did a huge finance play with OrthoBanc. Talk about that journey. You probably know more about the business of financing dentistry more than anybody I could think of.
Yeah, well, again, OrthoBanc is it's an automated accounts receivable, and again, it came out of my practice. The number one thing, again, it was created. It was programmed or beginning to be programmed in my practice in 1999. And it came out of the fact that orthodontists were basically, financing at zero interest the treatment. Somebody'd have a down payment, monthly payments, exactly like cars at the time and home mortgages at that time. But what I began to understand is the reason it was formed is my bank said to me, hey, there's this new thing called drafting. This was back maybe late 98, early 99. We would like for you to be one of our test customers. Would you be willing to test drafting out? And they told me what it was. And I said yes. And I did it and I liked it. And I said, I should have all my patients doing this. So I began to investigate, how do I create a drafting type of company? And the internet, high-speed internet, was just coming into being. And I thought, this would be cool. I could create an online company, which is what we did. and that we could draft all of these payments, have the patient sign a form in the practice, much like you do when you sign a loan for a house or a car, and just in that form have them say it's okay to draft your checking, savings, or credit card type of account over a certain time frame. And we built a program back in 2000 and launched the company then. And everybody told me I was crazy, that nobody is going to draft because why would they? And the next thing you know, it became the next thing. That's the same way I see Rhinogram. Rhinogram's the same thing in communication. Everybody goes, why would I want to text? Well, forget yourself, you the practitioner. Actually, texting is more efficient, more effective, and more profitable for you, number one. But patients want to do it. Anything that you can do to convenience the patient and your practice, it's a no-brainer to me. And that's basically what was happening with OrthoBanc. That's what's happening here with Rhinogram.
So I noticed, insurance and banking and financing. Intuit, which owns QuickBooks Pro, announced today that it wants to acquire Credit Karma for $7 billion. With everything you know about OrthoBanc and Credit Karma, trying to all that, what do you think of QuickBooks Pro and Intuit? Are they going to become the orthodontist small business accounting and finance partner?
They certainly could. I mean, they absolutely certainly could. Again, that type of program, I use QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks Business in my practice, and the hard part for them is integrating into all the various practice management systems. And I think, for me, it sits separately outside those systems. I would love for it to be inside them, but the dental world is not, and even the medical world, as a matter of fact, too, all of these systems are so different with such different technologies. It's not a standardized process, and each practice where they label things and put things within a practice management system is different also, that it makes having an integration very, very difficult to occur. And I don't think somebody like a Quicken or QuickBooks or whatever is going to spend the time, effort, energy, money for this small of a deal for them. They're not going to consider this a very large market for the expense of integration that they would have to go through. It would have to be, it's like a one-to-one basis, practice to practice to practice to practice.
So do you think, so what software are you running your orthodontics on, orthodontic practice? Because I've noticed in general dentistry that all the closed systems like Dentrix and EagleSoft, they're spending a ton of money advertising to sell more customers. The only one not advertising is the open platform, Open Dental, who is not advertising and is growing too fast for their own comfort. So do you think with all these integration issues that you just described, are you familiar with Open Dental, and is there an open platform in ortho?
The Open Dental is fantastic, and I think that it's great, and they potentially could integrate, but again, it's going to be how and where you put things is the bigger key, and how you want it written back into the platform, because it could be different one dentist to the next unless you force the dentist to use just right here, right now. But I would think they would be somebody like a QuickBooks would fit them better than some of the others. I use TOPS in my practice, which is my practice management system.
You have your own? You own TOPS?
No. No, TOPS is an orthodontic specific practice management system. And that's the one I use. There's probably 1,600 orthodontists that use TOPS. There's about 4 to 5 major ones in the orthodontic world that are used. TOPS is one of them. But again, I think integration into the non-open platforms is the tougher part. TOPS would be one of those companies that would be difficult because it's not a cloud-based program. It's not necessarily open code either. And the reason lots of companies do not want you writing back information into their platform is if that data is corrupt or there's a virus in it, it can crash the whole system. So having open platforms is good on one side and potentially bad on another, depending on who you're integrating with and how ethical and clean and precision the data is that's being put into your platform.
So I want to go back to the Smiles Direct Club. It's kind of interesting because when I got out of school in '87, a big screen TV didn't exist. Then when it did come out, it was 5,000, but it was like a meter wide and a meter deep, and now it's $500. You can hang it on the wall. So everything's supposed to get faster, better, easier, smaller, cheaper, all that kind of stuff like that. So they're a major disruptor. Does it challenge your business model? Did you see any parts of that where you say, well, this is a good idea here?
Yeah. Well, to your point, I have created, what I would call for the non-huge corporate world, a business model that actually can compete head to head with that model. And I do it in my own practice. I've been doing orthodontic exams from the patient home for the last 3.5, 4 years. You can go to my website and it'll say, hey, we do a complimentary smile assessment with a quote from the comfort of your home. And when you click on that, we ask the patient to take 3 selfies of their teeth. And in probably 98% of them that send them in, we're able to give them what they need. And then they'll take a selfie of the front and back of their insurance card, send that. We'll be able to look up what the insurance is going to pay. I'm going to be able to tell, hey, is this an orthodontic retreat of 1 or 2 teeth that maybe the Smile Directs of the world are feasting on right now? And if so, I can price myself in the ball game. I can create the same convenience level of not as many in-office visits. I can do virtual follow-up as well. And all of that can be done by a board certified practitioner or an orthodontist, or for those family dentists who are into treating with Invisalign, they can go out there and do the same thing. And the patient then gets a local practitioner that if anything is needed or goes wrong, they can go actually see, versus a virtual doc that they may not be able to see. So I think from a clinical efficacy standpoint and being able to handle issues and problems and knowing what you're getting into beforehand is incredibly important. The thing about having to have an X-ray is important as well before you actually begin treatment. I know in what we do is we will do the exam from home. We'll set up pay arrangements. We'll send them a link to our health history. All of that's done before they walk into my office in my particular practice today. And when they come in, I do the real exam before starting treatment. We'll do the X-ray. We'll take a scan of their teeth, and I'll go in and we'll take photos and we'll talk with the mom and child, or if it's an adult, the adult patient, because what I found on X-ray it needs to be discussed before we start anything. And some of the things that I found, just to let you know, would be supernumerary teeth. So you go in there and you see an adult or even a child with all the permanent dentition in, and all of a sudden on X-ray you've got all these supernumerary teeth. Well, we tell the mom, hey, we can put the braces on today as planned. We can't put a wire in. We're going to need you to see the oral surgeon and get these extra teeth out before we begin movement of any type. I've seen foreshortened roots, that is orthodontic retreats, that need to be discussed, the ramifications of what can occur if we go through with treatment today. I've seen lesions of various types that needed to be discussed and shared, that, hey, this was here before treatment. It's not something that treatment caused. So there's lots of reasons that we need to physically see the patient. And in my opinion, from what I will call direct to consumer big corporate model, that's the piece that's missing, that they don't deliver. And that to me is putting patients at risk, if you were to ask me personally, because I'm doing virtual care, but I'm doing it also in a different delivery model, but under the most efficacy to the patient themselves. You're making sure you do no harm, or that you at least warn the patient about potential harms that can be done, and not with just a blanket statement of everything that can go wrong. You're there pointing out the things that are compromised, or things that need to be done.
I would really like to know what people think of, like look at HIPAA. They pass a law. They don't want you sharing information. It came from a senator in Kansas where I grew up. And it's like, look, if it came about during the AIDS crisis, well, why don't it's a criminal deal. If I'm a doctor and you have AIDS and I tell my buddy or post on Facebook, you should be able to sue me, arrest me, whatever. But they passed this HIPAA thing like OSHA, and now everybody's has to think with their brakes on, pay $300-400 a month for all these things. And this is all the things that just make healthcare so much more expensive that you can't even move. And then when it gets so expensive they can't move, they run back to the people who made it expensive, the government, to try to get help from like Bernie Sanders and all that. Well, it's so expensive. Well, yeah, they passed laws for 50 years. They made it so unaffordable. And now the sheep are going back to the guys who ruined it. To try to fix it. I find it just so bizarre how that happens. What would you say to a new orthodontist that just came out of school, and he's like, and he's looking at guys like you and me thinking, come on, Keith, you graduated in the golden years, the glory days, and you graduated before Invisalign and Smiles Direct Club and all this stuff. What would you say to a young orthodontist who just walked out of school and wanted to open up in Chattanooga? Would you tell him he should have sold commodities in Chicago?
No, I'm going to tell them just the opposite. The golden age of orthodontists and orthodontics is ahead of us. It's not behind us. What's changed is the acquisition of patients and how that is done. That's the only thing that's changed. And there's now more possibility for you than less. If you're thinking traditionally, then you're going to think, oh my God, yeah, I better have sold commodities. But if you're thinking ahead, you're going to acquire these folks online. You're going to begin to do lots more digital marketing, because your traditional referral sources, which would be the family practitioners for the most part, and or other ways, all of those are not the way that you're acquiring patients today. And especially in orthodontics, where you've got the 23 to 39-year-old population that wants to be acquired online anyway. So the better the marketing, if I was to talk to a new guy, I would say you need a telehealth platform that allows you to acquire folks online and to be able to do what teledentistry, teleorthodontics, and you're going to need a great marketing company that's going to put you out there, that you are the one that is noticed. You are the one that's providing the most convenient access and acquisition access than anybody else. And you're going to make it as affordable as anybody else. The market that you open up is far greater than the referral market that you would have had if it were done by traditional referral sources.
So, it seems to me that I don't know anybody in my lifetime. If you know them long enough, no one has one tattoo. You know, they show you their first tattoo. 5 years later, it's number 2. By the time they're our age, they've got half a dozen. Same thing with ortho. I don't know anybody who's our age who had ortho one time. They got it when they were a kid, and then after their divorce, they got touched up again with some Invisalign and Botox or whatever, and now they're 68 years old. In fact, I just had dinner with my Aunt Sue the other night, so tell HIPAA this. It's broadcasting and it's not a clean. And she wants Dr. Harry Green to touch up her ortho again. How many times does the average American who does get braces, how many times do they actually get braces if they live all the way to the end? It's got to be greater than 1 and less than 2, I assume. Or is it 1, 2, 3? What is it?
That's a wonderful question, but I would think that because of the society we live in, it's pretty vain, and there's no such thing as orthodontic stability on its own without some sort of lifetime retention. So, I would think it's it has to be greater than 1.5. I would think, that the people, and it's not braces. I would call, and maybe it's just semantics of terms. I think when the term braces is used, I think of metal brackets and or ceramic brackets, and I use the term clear aligner treatment, or as the other form of treatment. Then you've got functional appliance treatments. So for sure, you're going to have potentially in a lifetime more than one. And I would think, again, it goes back to educating the public. And I think the education to today's patients are far greater than they were, let's say, when I had braces, because you have my generation who basically backs up the claim that, hey, if you don't wear your retainers to some small degree for life, your teeth are going to move, because these are all the people that didn't wear their retainers and their teeth moved, and they're doing it again. The next generation, I don't know if it's going to be, if the number's going to stay the same or get worse or get better based upon the knowledge level of all the folks that had it. And, really, we're the first generation, or I'm the first generation that has a full complement of teeth into their 60s and 70s. Back in my grandparents' days, they were all in dentures, so they didn't even have to think about this. And aesthetic beauty wasn't a thing as much as it was with the baby boomers and what we grew up with about having being healthier and better looking and all the things that go on in our generation.
So in a sense then, if you say the average person who gets braces is going to have braces 1.5 times, we both know when I got out of high school in 1980, those big Catholic families in Kansas, 7, 8 kids, only the most horrific bite got treatment. Now that families are down to 2, It's kind of like a rite of passage. Everybody gets their bar mitzvah and braces before they get out of high school. Do you think having a lower price point like Smiles Direct Club will actually lift the market? Because if a bunch of people get in there real cheap, and it's never going to work out perfectly. It doesn't even work out perfectly when you're sitting there. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat there and looked at an anterior veneer or crown, and someone's telling me, how they don't like it or whatever. When they come back for seconds and thirds and fourths, it's going to lift the orthodontic market up in the future.
Yeah, well, I think that, as well as there's for sure downward pressure on pricing. But I do think, again, what, as opposed to, the way the pricing model traditionally worked in orthodontics, where it didn't matter if it was an easier case or a harder case, it was all charged out at about the same price, and it was to make things easier for orthodontists. I think what's going to change is the fact that orthodontists and people who do orthodontics, I don't want to just say orthodontists, because there's 30,000 family dentists that do orthodontics as well. And then there's pediatric dentists that do orthodontics. And so for those practicing tooth movement, they're going to have to come up with multi-tiered and understanding what's hard, what's easy. And those cases that'll be 6 months or less need to be done at a much lower price point than those cases that are going to take 2 years or longer. And the evolution in my mind that will occur is there's going to be various price points along the way. I know in my own practice, again, I'm not advocating doing it my way or anything, but I have really a 6 month or less price. I've got a 7 month to 12 month price. I've got a 18 to 13 month, and then I've got a 18 to 24, and then above 24 months. I've got all those tiers of pricing in my practice based upon how much it's going to cost me. And it's gotten a little more convoluted in some sense from the ease of quoting one price or maybe even two, to where you have to be more accurate in what you're doing. And at the same time, I know in my practice, my goal is to be as efficient as possible. And efficiency, in my definition of efficiency, is having to see the patients as few times as possible while delivering the same high quality care, meaning that's how we can drive our overhead down, because the less times they're in, the less expense structure you have, and its convenience is being provided to the patient because they have to get off work or get out of school fewer times. And it's again, a win-win for both sides of the equation.
You've lived through a lot of innovations in your lifetime. When you and I were getting out of school, the top dog orthodontist was Gasper Lazera, Orthodontic Centers of America. He was the only one who made it to the New York Stock Exchange with $1 billion valuation. Are you friends with Gasper? What do you think if he thinks of the modern Smiles Direct Club and Invisalign from the days of OCA?
Yeah, I do not know Gasper. I've never met him. I've admired him from afar in that, again, he's an outside the box thinker. I'm an outside the box thinker, a type of person. I think he was, obviously the first and well ahead of his time in what he did. Again, it probably led to lots of the thoughts around the DSOs being formed today. And again, the thing that I view out of it, and the hardest part of his formula, and he might agree with this even today, is being able to maintain, once you've created this large group of practices across the country that are branded, that they're all owned by one company. The harder part is maintaining the doctors within that practice, because doctors retire. Now you've got to replace with a doctor, and you've got to be on top of all of that, because somebody could just pass away. What are you going to do? Who's going to treat the patient in that location if a doc passes away? Who do you have available that you can plug in? That's I would think, still a hard piece of the equation even today. And that is why he created, I think, back in that era, the ability to go to one of the universities, orthodontic programs at one of the universities in Florida. And part of going there of this orthodontic program that was created was to give X amount of time to some of the facilities that he had. And I thought that was pretty ingenious way of filling those voids. But again, it's tough, because all practitioners, they've got their own thing in mind. Some may like corporate, being, corporately owned and just go in, and some get into it because they want to run their own thing and work as hard or as not as hard as they want. So, I like outside the box thinkers. Again, I like the thought process of Smile Direct Club. I don't have anything against them. I do think how they have chosen to deliver needs some tweaking. That's all. I mean, again, you get out there, I think they've gone a little bit overboard on the ability to keep the patient as safe as possible there. And they put a lot of that burden on the patient, but the patient, they're not the experts. They can't tell. They can't go take an x-ray of themselves, even though they may have signed something that said, yes, I've been to see the family dentist and the family dentist has approved me for treatment, when in reality, they haven't seen the family dentist. And it's easy to put the blame back on the patient, but they're in reality, patients lie. And you've got to have the patient in the hands of a practitioner, is my belief. You don't have to, for a minimal number of visits, but that needs to be more of the model, rather than them being able to sign their life away and actually potentially sign some of the health away.
You and the CEO, Smiles Direct Club's in Nashville, and you're in Chattanooga. Have you ran into David Katzman?
I have not. I early on, when I was just beginning Rhinogram, I reached out to him and them, but they've never reached back. I've never had one single conversation. I don't know them. Chattanooga, even though Nashville's close, is still, it's not in my hometown. So, I've never met him, or has he ever returned a call or anything from me. So it is what it is, I guess.
So this teledentistry thing, the orthodontists think teledentistry, they think Smiles Direct Club. You are thinking my own patient, and necessity is the mother of invention. You're sitting there saying, hey, you're texting us, let's make Rhinogram, let's do an orthodontic consult. I've been doing teledentistry for years with my pharmacist. The specialists come by and give us cookies. I would always go out and give the pharmacist cookies. And when Steve Jobs came out with his smartphone in 2007, I was like, they always tell me that people several times a day will come up to him and say, man, if you got a toothache, do you recommend Oragel or Bufferin or Excedrin? And they just pull out their phone and they FaceTime me. And I'm sitting there, right there, looking at him, and I'm like, oh man, and they pulling it back, and you can tell them, you see their age, you see it's bombed out, you can tell them this is going to need a root canal and a crown or an extraction, come across the street. So it's just an amazing thing. The only reason it's so expensive and complicated is because our friendly government passed HIPAA and OSHA and 18,000 laws, and that's the only reason there's no free enterprise. But this teledentistry, there's now a Teledentistry Association, and you're part of that. Dr. Mark Ackerman, DMD, MBA, who we've had on the show, is the executive director of the American Teledentistry Association. Seems like teledentistry, it seems like dentists are either really into it and love it and are excited about the future, or they just want to smack it down. What do you think about the American Teledentistry.org?
Well, again, I think if you're going to advance anything, you have to have an organization. Meaning, when implants first came out, well, there wasn't an implant organization that everybody can gather around, advance the placement of them, the technology behind them, and I think Dr. Ackerman, what he has done is he has formed the organization, and all forms of teledentistry are involved there. I think there's a misconception that it's all Smile Direct. Well, all you had to do is attend the first meeting and know that it's not all Smile Direct, because Smile Direct got hammered. They had a panel discussion of which I was on, and there was an attorney and there was Smile Direct representative on, and that representative got very, very flustered because of the few hundred attendees that were there. They were pounding him with questions to the point that he just got frustrated and said he no longer is going to answer questions. So if they think it's all about Smile Direct, then they need to go to the meeting and understand that there are lots of great things occurring in teledentistry, and it's about way more than orthodontics, for sure. It's about rural area folks receiving advice and care from licensed practitioners that may be located in a metropolitan area with a huge practice, and giving those folks the access. That's what teledentistry is about as well. And it's the things like you talked about. And wouldn't it be cool if a patient, and this is what the folks that are advertising see, and what I see, I'm talking about family dentist, orthodontist, anybody, it's, hey, the patient can snap a picture of the thing, text it directly to your office, and ask you a question. And that could be a patient of record, or it could be a brand new patient that you acquire by being able to answer their question in the way that they want you to do it. If you force them to take off from work and come in to get their question answered, well, you're going to lose to the guy who's not going to make them do that, to the practice who's not going to make them do that.
So do you, so what % of your practice is clear aligner versus hardwire?
I would say it's probably 60-40, 60% braces, 40% aligners, and it's continually aligner treatment is going up in percentage.
So all the patents are pretty much off these aligners, and it seems like, I think I've tracked 40 companies around the world that are now in the clear aligner business. Do you agree with that number or thereabouts?
Yeah, no, and growing every day. So every single day.
So to a young orthodontist, a young kid in school, she wants to be an orthodontist. Are you agnostic to clear aligner, or are some companies just significantly better?
I'm going to say and I heard this saying this weekend because I went to a course. I'm going to say that if you're just beginning, you're going to want to stay with one of the big three. But once you learn or how to deal with aligners, then you may. I know there's some white label companies that are out there that are good, that are being pushed, but as the initial practitioner, it's going to cost you a little more. But the big three would be Big Blue, which I would call Invisalign, Big Red, which I would call 3M. Unitech is Big Red. They have a very good aligner system.
And what's their aligner system called?
Shoot. I don't know.
Okay.
Don't ask me.
That is a cool name. 3M's clear aligner. Okay, but anyway, so you're calling Big Blue Invisalign, Big Red 3M.
And then just recently, I will call Smile Direct Big Purple, because Smile Direct has said they are now going to allow practitioners to do what Invisalign does. I mean, you can use their things and send cases to them, and they will send it back in a box to you, the practitioner, just much like all the others do. So
3M is Clarity.
Yeah, that's right. Clarity aligners. That's right.
So these are what's the name of this list of Big Blue, Big Red, and Big Purple? Just the big what do you call it?
I would say they're the big three. Those are the big three in aligners that will generate very good aligners, because they understand. Obviously, Invisalign understands the best. Smile Direct probably the next best in numbers of patients that were treated, and Unitech 3M Unitech has understood orthodontics forever, because they were a big bracket system as well. They make brackets. They understand tooth movement, so they understand aligner movement as well. And they've got some pretty big orthodontists that were 1%ers of Invisalign that they've hired to work with them in creating their product a couple of years ago. So they've done a great job, and I personally use them. I use Big Red.
And you said is 3M's Unitech? Who's Unitech?
Unitech was one of the largest, if not the largest, orthodontic bracket and supply company as an orthodontic industry supplier. It was then bought years ago by 3M, and they have an orthodontic division, which is the 3M Unitech division.
So the 3M Unitech is for brackets, and the 3M Clarity is for clear liners?
Yeah, well, Clarity is just the brand name under 3M Unitech. It would be like, I'm selling, let's just say Coke and Pepsi in there. They're two brand names. So I'm selling Clarity is just the name of either a Coke or a Pepsi, but it's under the big company 3M is who the parent company is, who owns the rights to that name, I guess.
So the big three clear aligners are Big Blue Invisalign, Big Red 3M Unitech Clarity Aligner, and Big Purple Smiles Direct Club.
Right.
And which one are you using?
I'm using Big Red, and again, no in particular reason other than I'm a Unitech bracket guy, and when my rep came in to see me and told me about it, I get I get a discount. The more stuff you buy from a company, the greater the discount. So I get actually a discount off the cost of my aligners through Big Red, and they include all the supplies that I buy, not just the aligners.
And if you were general dentists always want to know this. This is true. When you go to dental schools, the endodontists help you learn molar endo. The oral surgeons help you pull a wisdom tooth. But it seems to be all the specialists are like that. But a lot of general dentists, they feel weird if they start doing clear aligners. Like they'd be afraid to run into you at the study club. They think, oh my God, maybe he knows I took an Invisalign class. Is that real or is that imaginary, Keith?
Well, it depends on the person. I think if you're talking about me specifically, because I view the world differently, through a different lens than maybe others, I would, for me, it's not a thing. I would hope that the family dentist would want me to engage with them, because I think what I could do is maybe keep them or educate them as to what cases not to get themselves involved in. It's going to be too complex. And again, to me, tooth movement, pressure systems, moments of force, etc., is what we're taught in ortho school. I don't feel that family dentists have as thorough an understanding of that, and they don't necessarily have to with easy cases. But with more difficult cases, it is important in how you set the case up, if it's going well or not going well, and how to change those and re-prescribe different things that would create the necessary movements you need to achieve your end results. And so my hope would be that orthodontists would want to help the family dentist. Unfortunately, there are orthodontists who are out there and that aren't willing and feel that it's, why are you competing with me, and that sort of thing. I don't, again, my mindset isn't that way. So again, I would say it can be real or it can be imaginary based upon the orthodontist and their personality and the prism that they look through to the world. There's some orthodontists that say nobody should be doing orthodontics, but orthodontists, and they feel that way and are passionate that way. And then there's orthodontists like me that say, hey, if I'm not here to say who can do it and who can't, I'm here to help. And if you want to do something, I'm here to help you, and I'm here to do the best that I can do. And if you get yourself in trouble, I want to be here to pull you out,
Gosh, I could go on and on and on, but I gotta, I know you're a busy man. Is there anything you thought we were going to talk about that I didn't mention?
No, other than what I was going to tell you, that Rhinogram solves really solves all of your compliance issues, problems, and the such. And it's not just HIPAA that you worry about. Texting has lots of laws. There are FTC laws, there are FCC laws, there's TCPA laws.
Will you say that slower for all the Bernie supporters? They still can't figure out why the cost of healthcare went up. So say those points slower.
There's TCPA laws, and there's FTC. But let me tell you about TCPA, because it is and it is a great law, and it was put in for a reason. And I don't think again, this is not one that should not have been put in. It should have been. When you are dealing with email, email to people who had email is free, so to speak, other than the internet access that you're paying for. It's relatively free. And so when you would receive junk emails, it's not coming at a true price to you other than what you're already paying for internet access. Cell phone usage is very different. Even though I and lots of the world are lots of the US is on unlimited usage, there is still a portion of the population, the lower socioeconomic end specifically, that purchases data there. No business is allowed to randomly, without consent, text anything or run up anybody's bill without their consent. The only thing that HIPAA did with TCPA, and HIPAA and TCPA are tied in this way, is the HIPAA law said they exempt the appointment reminder from having to have the original consent. So, and that's because appointment reminders were already being texted before the texting telecommunication law came into being. And so they exempted the appointment reminder. Now, with that said, the person receiving the appointment reminder, the patient, has to have the ability to say stop and not receive another one. So that's the only thing in healthcare that got exempt was the appointment reminder. And it is good that you, as a practitioner or anybody, any business, can't sit there once you have someone's cell number and send them all kinds of materials to that cell number, run out their minutes without their permission. And so everything that you do when it comes to texting does involve consent management. And we at Rhinogram have built-in consent management to our platform, which again, I can tell you that the vast majority of the ones that I know of have no consent management, and therefore would, if there was not consent gained, would then put that onus on the practitioner saying, hey, you should have known that's the laws that you need to gain consent. In the meantime, the practitioner is fined $50,000 an incident by the government because they're invading people's privacies by texting them all the time when they don't have consent to do so. And that is the, quote, danger side of texting. It is a different animal than email. And you can't just throw people in groups and start texting groups different things unless it is about an appointment. You can do that unless they tell you not to, you know.
So if Invisalign's big blue, 3M's big red, Smiles Dry Club's big purple, Henry Shine reveal, what color would you give Henry Shine? What color comes?
They would be a big player too. I don't know. I'm going by their logo colors. Maybe they're red, white, and blue or whatever. The Invisalign logo color is blue. The Smile Direct is purple. 3M is red. So whatever their logo color is, you got to pick
a color. They're red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
What's the first color that comes to mind?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I see all those colors. They could be big blue too, because I think, some of their name is in red and some of it's in blue. I think Henry might be in red and Shine might be in blue. So I don't know.
Well, I gotta go. But it was just an honor for you to come on the show today.
Well, thank you, and feel free to have me back. Thank you for having me. I'd love to talk more with you at any time. And again, anything I can do for you, the dental population, anybody listening to this podcast, feel free to text me in my personal cell. It's 423-505-7712. That's 423-505-7712. Reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk with any of the listeners out there. And of course, if you're interested in an individual telehealth platform for individual providers or groups, it's not just individual. We're enterprise grade. We're in hospital systems and everything else. So it could be DSO likes. More than happy to talk to you about anything. And again, thank you for having me on your show.
You are an amazing man, and thank you for giving out all that, all your private data information. And again, you're an awesome, and I'll come out there. Just line up a steak dinner with my buddy John McSpadden and you,
Yeah.
and we'll get the Smiles Drug Club people over there.
Okay.
No, he will. I can get him on the phone. He's a businessman. He'll listen. He knows you're a mover and shaker. But hey, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
All righty. Thank you.